Welcome to My Wellness Rewired, Hacking Women's Health. Join Larissa and Malerie as they explore biohacking tips for women based on the latest science and research available today. They're learning and optimizing to help you unlock your best self. Let's hack smarter, not harder, together.
Welcome to My Wellness Rewired. Today we are talking about a fascinating topic that I think impacts everyone, men and women, but we're going to focus specifically on how it impacts women today, which is your heart rate variability, which is abbreviated often as HRV. And Mallory was super into this when a couple months ago, a year ago maybe?
Probably
Right from the beginning. This is like one of your hot topics.
Yes, it has been. It's been one that it's been a tough nut to crack, let's say.
That's a good way to work. So she has been really into it, and I've just gone along for the ride with her journey on it. And so we're going to talk about that today on the ups and downs we've had with HRV and what we've learned from it. So stay tuned. We're going to really dive into it and what it is, how it can help you, what impacts it, and some quick takeaways that you can immediately try at home if you are experimenting or are struggling with your HRV like we were. We are going to give you useful tools and other resources that will help you. And so it's going to be great. I'm very excited to talk about it today.
Me too. I am excited. This one's been a long time coming because it's like I said, it's been a tough one to figure out for me, but it actually ended up being a very big lever on how I feel day to day. So that's why we're covering it. And just for fun, we'll throw in some fun facts along the way just to, spice things up. So, what is HRV? And the simplest definition I can come up with on this, we've talked about it on the show before, but if you haven't listened to previous episodes, your heartbeat doesn't beat like a perfect metronome. It's not that precise, right? So there's tiny spaces between each beat that naturally speed up or slow down a little bit. And that variation between your heartbeats is called heart rate variability. So I'm going to give you an analogy for this because we all know I love analogies.
It's my favorite part.
Yeah, they just make things make more sense, right?
They help clarify.
They do. I need a mental image. I'm a very visual person, apparently. So imagine that there's some kids jump roping, right? You have kid number one who is just, they jump in this stiff, exact rhythm the whole time, no changes. If any other factor around this kid changes, they're probably going to get tripped up, right? Whereas think about kid number two. They can speed up a tiny bit, they can slow down a tiny bit and still keep jumping smoothly with whoever is holding the jump ropes, right? They can just kind of adjust on the fly. The second kid is more flexible and ready for anything. And that's what a higher HRV would be, right?
Mm.
So it makes sense. You need to have that a little bit of flexibility to adjust to stressors or whatever. Who knows what those kids are going to do who are holding the jump ropes. Some of them really sucked. So
they didn't have a good rhythm going.
Yeah, I was one of those kids. Okay. Hands up. That was me. I'm just saying.
That's interesting because as you get older, your heart rate variability automatically drops. And so it kind of I think as we get older, we are less flexible in our agility and our neuroplasticity.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it kind of makes sense in all areas, right?
It does. And it's really interesting because another way that I like to think about it is higher HRV, like if you were like a car, it usually means that your nervous system can shift gears smoothly, between go mode and rest and repair mode. In your nervous system, that would be like the fight or flight and the rest and digest. And it can do that without grinding gears. Like if you've ever driven a manual, then a lower HRV would mean that when you try to shift gears, there's some nasty grinding going on, right? That just doesn't feel good. So
I love driving a stick.
I did not like driving a shift. So anyways, it's interesting. But one thing to note about HRV is that it's something that you have to have something to measure it, right? And it's not like you can put your finger on your pulse and be able to do it. We have to use tech that helps us record. So I was originally introduced to it through the 8 Sleep bed, which was phenomenal. But apparently there's different ways that it tracks the metrics, whereas the Oura Ring tracks differently, which is what you found. And then when I got the Oura Ring, I found it as well. And so You just have to be careful about methods about devices because their methods can vary by device. So you just really want to make sure that you're measuring always with the same device, if that makes sense, and looking at your trends over time. So just a quick, one thing we learned.
Yeah. Because even like I have a Fitbit and I have the Oura Ring and they do not match. They're close, but they're not exact.
Yeah, and they probably use different methods, right?
Yeah. All right, so that's a great segue into our fun fact number 1. Women's heart often runs a little differently than men's, which we know almost about everything in our bodies is a little differently than men's. But a big 2016 study review that looked over 63,000 people found that women tend to have a high-frequency HRV, which is the part that links the rest and digest of the nervous system. And even though they also have a slightly faster average resting heart rate than men.
Yeah, isn't this interesting? So in other words, the higher heart rate doesn't necessarily mean the system is more stressed or less flexible, right? So the vagal or the calming contribution is often just relatively stronger in women. So,
which is great.
Kind of interesting. I just thought it was interesting because it's just another reason why we cannot apply male HRV normals to like those assumptions to women. The pattern itself is different. So I thought that was fascinating.
I feel like we've learned that in almost everything that we've done. So much of the science research is based on men data. And so then they assume that across the board to everyone and that you can't do that.
Yeah, that assumption has been made. It's so fascinating. But if you look at it all comes to hormonal cycles. Like there is a physiologically different way that we operate, right? And so there's going to be small differences in all of these measurements. It totally makes sense when you see it from that perspective.
And we have 500 million hormones and men have very few.
You mean 5 million roller coaster rides? Jeez.
We have a lot more highs and low peaks.
Oh, it's so true.
So when should women care about HRV and when should they shouldn't? So this is a very big thing because men are very consistent and stable, but women focus on it differently. So when you are looking at a woman's cycle, it does change. So like the follicular stage is like day 1 of your period to ovulation, and then versus the luteal stage, which is ovulation to your period. So those are 2 different recovery outlooks. So you're gearing up to ovulate, and then you're de-escalating or coming down from ovulation. And so how you respond to life stressors is different depending on your cycle. And so
this is a great time for fun fact number 2 is your cycle can nudge your HRV up or down, actually. So like many people will see their HRV dip a little bit after ovulation during the luteal phase. And so you might see it dip during your luteal phase. And if you're tracking it, you might think that you're doing something wrong, but it's actually just a normal hormonal response to your phase because your progesterone during your luteal phase, right, affects your brain differently than it does your heart, right? Like it might be more calming with the GABA for your brain, but it's going to show indicators of more stress on your heart, which I thought was interesting.
That is very interesting, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah. Yep. Not everything affects it the same, right?
So you should care and lean on data when you're like mapping to your cycle. And the second one is when you're navigating perimenopause and menopause. So this is very, very, very hard to do when you're in perimenopause because your hormones are fluctuating daily. So, but you just have to kind of make sure that you acknowledge the hormonal shifts and know that your baseline is going to change depending on your cycle. So that is something that just to be aware of. And then managing higher training loads. And so if you're really training hard or working out hard or running or rucking or strength building, any of that like very physical activity, and you're not bouncing back, that's telling you something about your HRV. So might have to back off, or if you're not, you might have to push yourself a little harder based on your data on your results from your wearables. So that's where you can kind of monitor yourself through.
Yeah, because like your HRV is really just a flag. It's putting a flag up that's saying, hey, you're not recovering. And so then when you're training really hard and your HRV isn't recovering, it can be a sign that you need to give yourself more time to recover. This is something that I personally have learned. And so it's tough when you just want to get in the gym and you want to work out and have some gains and you're like, no, you gotta take it slower because your body's not ready. And this is just literally, it's not, I don't know how to explain it, but it's really just like the indicator that other systems in your body, right, need some attention.
Are under stress. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's been, I think that's hard for anyone dealing with trying to improve your HRV or monitoring it, is to know when that is a real thing or not, because you really have to know your own body and know if it's a big stress or not. And that's where wearables do help. Like I know with the Oura Ring, like it will tell you, whoa, what's going on in your body today? You need to take a little more time to recover today. And it will tell you that. And so it forces you to acknowledge it and reflect on your own self and your own body. I'm like, how am I feeling right now? And sometimes it will say that, but I'm like, oh, that just was a dip because I worked out really hard, but I'm feeling good. I'm going to continue on or whatever. And then there's other times where you're like, yeah, I do kind of feel something, because it could also be a sign of like early illnesses, or like if you're burning out from like stress from work, or, any accumulation of any of those symptoms really could affect your HRV. So you are the only person who really knows your body. So you really have to like be aware of it. And that's where having a tracking on a device is really helpful, because it really does allow yourself to give yourself grace. Like, I do need to take it easy today.
Yeah. And it allows you to know when you're making changes in your lifestyle, it can be an indicator of whether it's working, right? So like if you're sleeping better, right? You're focusing on better sleep, or you're cutting out alcohol, or you're actively trying to manage your stress load differently, your HRV can be like that feedback that tells you that it's working or that it's maybe not, which is more often than not where I feel like I was. I was like, why isn't anything working?
Which we're going to talk about that. So we're going to put a pause on that, because we are going to talk about it, because it's very exciting about the things that can improve it that will shock you. Or shock to me.
Right. But first, let's talk about when you should not worry about your HRV. You should not obsess over your HRV when you're already solid on the fundamentals. If you're sleeping well, if your stress load's in a good place, if your recovery is going well, you've got a good method, and you feel good, you really don't need to worry about this number. This is just when you're trying to make changes happen, or where you feel like something's not right. It's a very useful tool in your tool belt. You don't need to worry about it if you're already set. If the number just creates anxiety or overrides how you are feeling in your body, right? Like you feel like this, but the HRV is saying this, and it's just messing with you, it's not a good time. It's not meant to get in your head, right? And again, you're not comparing yourself to population averages or male norms, because the thing that's tricky about HRV is it's very specific to you. And so you can only look at your own trend. If you're using it as a comparison to others, then it's not going to be useful to you. Just period.
And that's almost about all the things that we talk about on this podcast, is like you really have to know your own baseline and grow your own self. You're really helping yourself. You're not trying to help, to the normal, to the normal average. What'd you say? The
population averages.
The population averages, exactly. Because it's like you're not, everyone cannot be grouped into the same box. So you really have to compare it only to yourself.
Yep, that's true. And the last one is just if you have a single low day, like your HRV is going along great and then it just drops for no reason, like that can happen, like a super hard training block, or like you said, like you could be coming down with something. There's so many reasons. So if you're overthinking it, don't use this tool, guys. This is just if, like for me personally, I felt so out of whack. I knew something was wrong. I did not feel good. And this was a trend that when I started just tracking my biology, I was like, this doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? Like I could feel it and I could see the numbers. And so that's what brought me to this place.
It validated that you needed to shift something to fix it.
Yes. And here's our core philosophy on this. Lifestyle first, always. Tracking second. And only when it helps you make better decisions. That's the key.
Yeah, better decisions. Or like in the mirror, honesty. Like if you want to have like a reflective honesty, like, that probably wasn't the best decision. And now it's reflective. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Right. As Jen Stevens would say, your honesty pants.
Which I think we all need. And it's definitely not perfect, but I do agree that like core lifestyle, the more and more we do all these different hacks and biohacks, the more it all goes back to your lifestyle. How you live day to day and like what you put into your body on a regular basis is the true definition of longevity and better health. If you don't have that core down pat, then there's not a device in the world that is really going to offset a poor home life. A poor lifestyle.
There's not. And we only talk about these tools and devices so that we can make better decisions, right? Move into a direction of feeling better. That's their only purpose. And if they're not serving that purpose, then don't use that tool.
Well, they're really just, exactly. They're just tools. Like they're just tools
Yes.
in your tool belt. If it helps you, makes your life better, then great. If it doesn't, move on. But always go back to your core foundational lifestyle.
Yep. I totally agree.
All right. So now what can data actually do for women? So HRV is a real-time window into your nervous system flexibility. So if you do not have the ability to trust yourself and to trust your body and to understand that, because some people do. Some people are very in tune with their body. I am not one of those people. So
I am not.
needed the devices. So that's where the Oura Ring, the Whoop, and the sleep aid bed that you mentioned, like all these devices have it in because it's just another way to marker it. But you can start helping seeing trends and like double down on the recovery tools that really work. Does breath work for you? Going to bed earlier always helps me. But some people, that doesn't help them. So maybe like working out lighter on certain days based on your cycle phase. So instead of pushing through it, it kind of gives you a real window into what is happening in your body at that time. And that's the best part about HRV is it gives you a window into that.
No, I totally agree. And I think that this was the key for me is I didn't realize how much I was stuck in this like fight or flight vicious cycle. And it started with the postpartum depression, right? And I couldn't get out of it. And I didn't even realize how much I was still stuck in it because things had improved, but they hadn't improved enough. And so my body was showing signs of stress, right? And so that's what the HRV did for me. So that was huge. I really did have to double down on the recovery tools. I literally felt like for several months there that I was like, it was really hard to not be hard on myself, right? To be like, dude, you are so lazy. Like,
well, I think
laying around. Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, I think naturally women, we have 50 million things we have to do. We have to take care of all of our families and, all the things that's happening. And so we immediately we are forced to just powerhouse through it and to, get grit and just do it. And then because of that, it impacts us internally, but we don't know that unless you have a device.
It's so true. I can't believe how hard I was on myself. And so then when I actually spent time what I started doing was just having slower mornings. I was like, you know what? Like, just, you got to ramp up the day. You know what I mean? So like I started with like my morning ritual of like a cup of, the hot element tea, like the chocolate caramel or whatever, make myself a mug and I go outside and I take the dog out or I like play with my, my plants in my garden. And I'll do that for a solid 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And then I sit with my kids and I finish the tea and I like make a plan for the day. And it's so slow, Larissa. I drive people crazy sometimes, but it's just, vacationing with me. If you want to get up and go, wrong person to vacation with. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's why I get up so early, like before I have to go to work because I want my time. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do, And so it's like, and I don't want to feel rushed.
Right. But it was such a mind shift for me because I've always just been like, go, 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 go. But like getting up in the morning and giving myself the permission to go slow on days that I don't feel good. It wasn't every day, but that was a hard shift to make. I can't believe how hard that was, but it made a big difference. So the next thing that you can use the data for is athletic training, like we kind of alluded to already. You can use it to adjust your intensity by cycle phase or by life stress. Like if you're going through something that's just really getting in your head, you're really feeling overstressed already, like that's not a time to be training super heavy. Like your HRV is going to show the effect of the extra stress. And many women, they notice 3 to 9% lower time in their HRV, like a lower score on their HRV during their luteal phase, like we talked about. So there's a lot of things going on here that you could actually use to train better.
So basically overall, getting a baseline of where your HRV is, like if you're in the teens, like Mallory, I think you started in the teens, right?
I did.
Like,
yes.
If you're in the teens, you really need to use some tools to help improve that so you can go through life stressors more easily. And then as you build it up, and then when you get it, because when you are younger, you naturally have a higher HRV. And then as you age, your HRV slowly declines. And so an HRV of like a 50-year-old is going to be completely different than an HRV from a 30-year-old and a 20-year-old and then a 10-year-old. So the older you get, your HRV naturally will decline on what it can max out at. And so knowing that, like if you can improve your HRV, if you're in the teens, let's say you're 40 and you're in the teens and you can improve your HRV to like the 40s, you're actually doing really well for your age group and all the other factors, right? And it will help you build more resilience. People who have a higher HRV, they say that they're more resilient about life stressors. They have better energy. They're less wired and tired. They sleep better. And it just confirms that they have a higher variability and flexibility in what they can and cannot handle.
That's very true, which leads perfectly into fun fact number 3, which is that age matters too. HRV often goes down as people get older. So a good number for one person might be totally different for another, which is why really your personal trend is what matters and comparison is pointless. And that's what's really hard about nailing down. When mine was in the teens, and every time I was trying to do research, this seems really low to me, guys. Like I'm watching commercials about improving your HRV and they're low HRVs in the 40s. That doesn't make any sense. Like, am I dying? Like, that was really the question I was asking myself. And so, but when I did the research, they were like, you can't compare. So it's really this combination. So let's talk about what chronically low HRV often feels like for women, because this is where I started. It's not just about the numbers that you're reading on your trend. It's about how you're feeling at those numbers too. Remember, it's not caused by the low number, but they come from the same underlying imbalances that the low HRV is measuring, right?
Well, it offsets your lifestyle. So these can offset different parts of your lifestyle, whether it's your sleep, whether it's, like all the different things.
Yeah, this is just the measure that tells you this is your score.
Yeah.
This is your grade.
Yeah. Yeah, this is your grade. Some system is off. You need to fix the other systems before this can improve.
Yeah. It's not the grade itself, it's what it's telling you. So, these are the things that if you have a chronically low HRV, it's persistent fatigue, like Larissa said, that wired but tired energy. So you can push through the day, but you never feel really restored. And that also includes sleep that doesn't really refresh you. Like even if you got like 8 hours of sleep, like there'd be nights I got 8 hours of sleep and I feel like I got 3. Like that's how it felt to me. Like I just didn't feel like I slept and recovered.
I am very lucky that I don't struggle with my sleep. So
I know that's never a problem for you.
that is not that much of a problem for me.
It was actually distressing. It was very distressing to wake up and I'm like, I've slept 8 hours for days and I feel I'm not sleeping. Like it was bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awful.
So persistent fatigue, that wired but tired energy, it's kind of like you can push through the day, but you never really feel truly restored. And tied to this, sleep that doesn't even like feel like it refreshes you. So like even if all of your hours look great, like for me, I would have like 8 hours of sleep, but I would feel like I'd wake up feeling like I only slept like 2 or 3. Like that's how like bone weary I felt.
Oh yeah.
And it was really hard because you're like, I'm doing everything right and I feel worse, like it was just terrible, honestly.
And when you're sleep deprived, it makes everything you do that day that much harder.
Yeah. But so but I slept 8 hours and I had those effects. Like, how messed up is that?
Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. And then the thing that I also deal a lot with is heightened stress reactivity. Like things that should be small feel like bigger triggers for me. And so then I'll I don't want to say flap the handle about something. And then later on reflect on that. Why was I so upset about XYZ? That's nothing. Why am I even looking at that?
Oh, it's a very real thing. As well as some other things that I feel like these are symptoms that can apply to a lot of things, but they can also apply to a chronically low HRV, like brain fog, slower mental processing, reduced focus, slower recovery from workouts or from daily mental and physical demands. I felt that for sure. Like I would work out and it would take me 5 days to recover. I'd be sore for 5 days after weightlifting. Like it just was stuff that you're like, this is not normal. And I was like other things, right? Irritability, anxiety, right? It's like it literally is feeling like your resilience is just
thin,
like it's run thin. And so at the time that I was measuring my HRV and I was in the teens and like a good day was 25, like that was a really good day for me. I was like, I was feeling all of these symptoms. And so over time I was like, okay, well, let me just learn how to improve HRV and see if I'm able to improve that number if I feel different. Right. And so then it was really just taking my baseline and then applying some things that changed the lever that improve some of those systems. And that's how I figured out circadian rhythm, which we'll talk about all these things, right? But in the past on the show, we've been talking about this because we've spent so many months trying to figure it out. I was struggling with all of these things at this point. So if you feel like you're struggling with some of these things, some women also notice like low-grade illness, digestive sensitivity, PMS symptoms are worse, right? All of these things can also happen when your HRV is stuck in this low point. It tells you how much your nervous system really affects your whole body.
Well, it's almost like your nervous system is like a weather report where it's like every single day you go on and you watch the weather to say like, what is it like today? What am I going to need? What do I need to prepare myself for today? And so really your HRV is just like your report for the day. It's not, it doesn't derail your day. It doesn't control your day, but it definitely sets you up. You might have to do other tools and do other things to set yourself up for success. Like if it's raining, you're going to need an umbrella, so you already like, if you look at it as like a weather report, then you can alter your day and put in different tools to help you be successful if you are at a low HRV.
Yeah.
For that day. Because it changes day to day. It's crazy.
It really does. It so does. And that's what I think made this so tough to figure out, is because there are so many factors that can be going on in your body that lower it. And there can be so many factors that can higher it. And you don't know, like it's a personal, you have to be your own detective for sure, which is why this has been such a big thing for us. So first, let's talk about the things that lower your HRV, because this is where I started. Is I was like, what is affecting it? Poor sleep, right? Being the first one.
Yeah. And then accumulative stress, like chronic stress load.
Yep. Your phase of your cycle, which we've already talked about, or hormonal shifts that can affect it as well. And then overreaching in training without adequately recovering. That can also do this. It's stressors on your body.
And alcohol, which is sad for a lot of people, but alcohol, even 1 to 2 drinks can suppress your HRV for the next day. So it's crazy. It doesn't take a lot. It's not like you're binge drinking. It just takes 1 or 2 and it will wreck your HRV
this
the
one's
next day.
Huge for me.
Yeah.
So I learned watching it over months that when I drink, I just have a couple glasses of wine, my HRVs cuts in less than half.
Wow, that's dramatic,
next day.
huh?
And it takes several days. Now, this is probably just an indicator that I've had a chronically low HRV. So my resilience is low. So then I introduce a major stressor, which for me is alcohol. And it will take me days to bring my HRV back. Whereas another person who's in a really great place, has a high HRV, very resilient, maybe they could drink and the next day it'll dip, but then it'll go back to normal after that. It might be an indicator. That one I feel like is one of the biggest ones.
And then another one is circadian misalignment. Like, so if you have irregular sleep time, if you have light exposure, if you do shift work, like if you work nights, like that's hard. Social parties and jet lag from if you travel.
Yeah. All of these things affect it. And then, of course, illness, inflammation, blood sugar instability was a surprising one. And one of the biggest ones for me also was dehydration. So all of these things can majorly change your HRV.
I think the blood sugar instability, I think that is huge. I think that might be very impactful because I think a lot of people have blood sugar issues that they don't even realize because they're not wearing a CGM.
Yeah. I think it also gets blamed on so many other things. It gets blamed on women's hormones a lot. Let's be real. That's what I did. And I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of it is actually blood sugar. So the flatter you can have that curve, right? Like it's going to affect your system, which means it's going to affect the weather report you get from your HRV. So it's like really all of these things, they interact. Night sweats, poor sleep, high stress load during perimenopause. This is like a triple hit. And like for me, it was like high stress. I had irregular sleep, alcohol, dehydration. All of these things were compounding to just destroy my nervous system. Let's be real.
And fun fact number 4, under sudden mental stress, men's heart rate tends to spike harder and their heart rhythm flexibility drops more sharply. Whereas women, particularly in the estrogen dominant part of their cycle, often shows a softer, more muted version of the same stress response. estrogen may be helping dial it down a bit. So that kind of explains as we go into perimenopause and menopause and we lose our estrogen, how things might be, we might be more irritable and like our HRV might tank because that hormone
We have a
that
higher
usually
stress
helps us-
response because we have less protection from the estrogen.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it all works. I mean, like it all connects.
Yeah, no, it really does. Okay, my favorite part, the biggest hitters that raise the HRV. These are things that we have found, and we're trying to talk about the highest leverage levers is what we want to hit, and then we'll talk about some supporting ones. So number one, sleep quality and consistency. We have talked about this before. Your circadian rhythm is huge. You want to go to sleep at the same time. You want to wake up at the same time. You want to sleep in a cool, dark room, and you want to protect your wind down time. You need to have your nightly routine that eases your body into sleep. We want to protect that sleep cycle as much as we can.
Okay, number two, another thing you can do is reduce your total stress load.
Yes, yeah, it's not just about managing it, but like we've talked about this before, the concept of open loops. Like you have a million things going on in your life that are just sitting there waiting for some sort of activity, whether it's just calling the electrician back or ordering the replacement part on that broken thing. You know, like for me right now, I could name like 20. And so the concept of auditing open loops is just sitting down and being like, what loop can I close right now? And it might take you 5 minutes. It might take you 10 minutes. But if you can close a bunch of those loops, right, then that is actively lowering your stress load and you don't even realize it.
Oh, I can totally see that. I think that's why I write a list of things to do every day, because then I can cross it off and then it makes me feel like I have more control.
You're closing
over,
some of those loops so that you have, it's basically like having less tabs open, right, in your internet browser. So it's a huge one. It really is.
Yeah, that is really big. I agree.
Yeah. The next one is train smart. Do, like we've talked about, strength training, more zone 2 instead of the high intensity, especially during your luteal phase, right? Or in high stress weeks. Like if you're feeling stressed, don't over stress your body physically. Makes sense.
Yeah. And then to help directly with your nervous system, use tools like slow breathing, like which we've talked about before, slow breathing, meditation, humming, and even cold face immersion. If you put your face in cold water, that helps your nervous system reset, which was surprising with me, but then it kind of loops in to cold plunging and cold showering and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So that helps your nervous system.
And it helps with resilience. Like that's a very big thing for resilience. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, next, alcohol reduction or temporary elimination. I'll just name off a few more. Blood sugar stability, right? The more you can flatten that blood sugar curve and the more you can focus on anti-inflammatory nutrition, that's going to make a big difference. Inflammation is the driver of so many things in our bodies. So anyway, and then the last one is hydration, which was big for me. But let's talk about actually, Larissa, how has your HRV been? Like, what have you seen over this whole year that we've been focusing on it?
I've been pretty stable-ish, but I can definitely tell when I have my dips. Like when I travel, like I dip more because I'm not sleeping in my own bed, all that stuff. But you actually got me onto Yoga Nidra. Every time I listen to Yoga Nidra at night, like that boosts my HRV up 5 points. I started doing Mindful Monday. I'll do like a meditation for an hour. That alone will increase my HRV the next day. Like, let's say I'm at like 40 and I'll do mindful meditation. The next day I'll be at like 60, 55, 60. It's crazy. And then the next day we'll go like, so let's say if I do meditation on Monday, the next Tuesday morning, it'll be like 55, 60. And then on Wednesday, it will be maybe, 50, 55. It'll slowly go down, but that's how long that hour meditation lasts. It's crazy. I was never a meditator. Never a Yoga Nidra person, never a meditator. And it is so interesting how that has like de-escalated. When I go into when I went into that sardine fast, which we'll talk about on a different episode, but with Felisa, my HRV shot way up. Felisa, our sister, we did a sardine fast, which we'll talk about, but every single day, it was 3 days. The first day I went up 5 points. The next day I went up 10 points. The next day I went up 15 points. And it was crazy. And I was like, who would have guessed the omega-3s, basically, if you got to be high on omega-3s, because that I think is from my experience, it really boosted up my HRVs, which was so unexpected.
Oh, that's so interesting. So I recall when we started, were you in the 20s, high 20s, I feel like?
No, I've been in the 40s to 60s.
I mean, at the very beginning, because now you've been at the 40s to 60s since you've improved.
No. I kind of did the opposite, where I started out high, and then as I'm started going to perimenopause, it's like it's done the dipping up, like it's
all
been
over the place.
inconsistent. Yeah, it's been inconsistent. So the more I'm working on my perimenopausal issues, like we talk about foundational skills, like I was always a really good sleeper. So if I can get good sleep, I usually have pretty good HRV. But if I don't get good sleep, that tanks. So, it's more of learning, like I stopped drinking, I stopped doing all these things. And so that has helped keep it up, but it's more of like combating my lifestyle to match my perimenopausal self.
That totally makes sense. Whereas like my experience was so different. I literally just found this because I was desperate to find something to explain why I felt like I was falling apart at the seams, right? And how I had just zero energy. Like I was just, talk about pouring from an empty cup. You know what I mean? It was like, I felt terrible. And so when I started, I was in the teens and had so many symptoms. I just feel like it was like fire alarms going off everywhere in my body, being like, what the flip, man? Like there's fires everywhere. And so I started in the teens and I tried for a long time to improve my HRV. And I did a lot of stuff on this list. The first thing I did was I started focusing on sleep. I started focusing on going to sleep and waking up at the same time. I started focusing on managing my stress better, like auditing open loops, intentional recovery. I took a completely step back from exercise. I just stepped back from it and was like, I need to take a break for now. I had to take some very serious changes. I stopped drinking alcohol. Like the circadian rhythm and hydration were like how I lived my life. You know what I mean? And I recall that I made it to the 20s, but I could never make it above 30. And I was like, this just, like, I know that we each have our own number, but I still didn't feel great. And so I do think that for me, it took a while. Like I had to be having the quality sleep. I had to be doing the circadian rhythm. I had to be, training smarter. I had to be actively working on my nervous system tools. Like I had to find activities that helped me actually relax because I would do things that would normally relax me and I would still feel tense. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't relax. I could not physically get myself into a relaxed state. And so I really had to pull out all the stops. So like I was like lighting candles and having a bubble bath with like herb sachets. Like I had to make the most luxurious things that would actually let me relax. But the more that I did that, it kind of like unlocked things, I felt like. And I'm talking about over the space of like 10 months. Like I didn't really start to see my numbers get to the 40s until maybe 3 months ago. And so now I'm at the 40s and sometimes I see the 50s. So I literally, the longer I work at having this healthier lifestyle is what I would call it, I have seen the numbers very slowly creep up. And so I want to see how I can get them.
Well, and that's where I want to give you some grace is you do have a 3-year-old, like you do have kids. And I feel like when you have young families, like your HRV might naturally take because you are under fight or flight for so long,
And
it's
like
you
a
are
new baby, multiple kids, like it's a lot on your nervous system.
Because it's not just your life anymore. You're taking care of others and you have to put their needs first and all that stuff. So, I mean, I just want to throw that out there. Like you got to give yourself a little grace. And for anybody listening, like if you're taking care of an elderly parent, if you're taking care of other people, it is hard to keep your HRV high when you're constantly giving to other people. But the best part about learning and knowing about the HRV is knowing that you have to take time for yourself. You have to come back to yourself and you have to set in, and it has to be consistent. So you have to put in routines and procedures that help you with these tools to be successful through chaotic events in life, because life is not smooth.
It's not. That really is, I feel like, the biggest lesson we've learned from all of this is like grace for yourself, but also priority too, right? Like I had to be like, in order to take care of my family, I have to take care of their mom.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not taking care of their mom, then there's nothing. I'm literally just taking pieces of myself and giving it away. You know what I mean? And so it's been an interesting journey, I will say, a lot deeper than I intended it to be. I just wanted a number to be higher and I wanted to feel better.
You wanted to check off. Okay, done. HRV is high, done.
I was like, energy. Where's the energy button, guys?
And so it's funny, when I was younger, that's why I always went to bed earlier. People were like, how do you go to bed so early? And I'm like, I'm a better person tomorrow if I get good sleep. I'm a better mom. I'm a better teacher. I have more patience. I just have to have sleep. And so I think that set me up for success. And then going into perimenopause, where every time I would drink, it would interrupt my sleep. Every time I would do this, it would interrupt my sleep. And then when my sleep started getting out of whack, then I was like, whoa. And then I became more irritable and all these things started happening. So I really was thankful that we had been doing this, because then it helped me realize what it was. And I'm like, okay, I need to do some stuff that I wouldn't normally do, and change my life to be healthier and to feel better.
It's so interesting, but it really does bring home how much your HRV, it's not how good or how disciplined you are. It's literally just a weather report on how much you are taking care of you. And so,
but
it can also, what?
For that day.
For that day. Exactly. Yeah. It's both. It's how have you been for the last few months? How are you today? Because so many things can affect it. It's literally just a weather report of your internal system. And so, it's just this quiet signal from your nervous system on how much capacity you have today. And that is the today part. And so sometimes it'll be lower, sometimes it'll be higher. It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that your body's doing exactly what it's designed to do under the load that it's carrying. And it just helps you understand that better.
Yeah. So you need to be reflective and know your own body and know what it needs to help it get through and be as successful as you can be.
Yes. And part of that is not obsessing over the number, but accepting the data and how you can use it. And so that was really what I had to learn. When I was reading about improving your HRV, they're like, you could double your number in 1 to 3 weeks. So I'd get to 3 weeks and I'm like, what are you even talking about? But it's different for everybody again. And I was in such a poor resilience place that it took me a very long time to recover, as it should when you get into that rough of a spot. Everybody's journey is different. Give yourself grace. And honestly, I feel like this is a huge tool for doing that, for just the weather report on yourself.
It's a great tool. And it is something that you can immediately do things to start healing yourself. And the longer you're in fight or flight, the longer it's going to take to get out of fight or flight. But that is just something to acknowledge, right? And be acceptable of it. But anything can change from day to day. So our sisterly advice for this episode is, for the next month or two, just look at your body, notice your patterns, notice what actually moves the needle for you. Use data as a supportive friend, not a critical coach. It's there as a tool. It's not a life sentence. So make sure that you show up. And even if all you got is 10% today and you gave 10%, then you're giving 100% of what you can give that day. So know that is every day is helpful and every day can be better, and meet it with curiosity instead of judgment. And it is a great tool.
Absolutely. That's so true. And remember, ladies, our mission is simple. We just want to help you truly know your body and take ownership of your health, one biohack at a time. Our own health curveballs, our own experiments have pushed us deep into this journey. And what we have learned has really changed everything for us. And so we're just here to share that with as many women as possible. So if this episode lit a spark for you, if it made you think of an incredible woman in your life, please share it. Hit like, spread the message, and let's bring some real health inspiration to the women in your life. We'll catch you guys next time.
I like to know all my parameters on what I can do and then tweak it to make it work for the situation.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Like the nervous system support is it gives you a real-time window into your autonomic?
I thought the computer froze for a second. Yeah. All right, you wellness rock stars. That's a wrap on this episode of My Wellness Rewired, Hacking Women's Health. We've had a blast dishing out the hacks and laughs, but hold up, let's keep it real.
Yep, we are not doctors. We are just sharing our biohacking adventures and learning right alongside you. Nothing we say is medical advice, so always, always check with your healthcare provider before trying any new wellness tricks.
Absolutely. This podcast is all about inspiration and entertainment, not prescriptions. So join our Facebook group for more sassy wellness vibes. Catch you next time.